Hello, I'm Dr. David King. This is lesson 7 of the Winner Inside, releasing the Invincible You Mastery Course. I hope that each and every one of you will take what you learned in lesson 6 to heart, and that you have worked diligently and will work throughout the week even harder to understand what the process of thinking and the value of it is. In lesson 7 tonight, let's discuss a few things. You know, throughout all the ages, man has believed in an invisible power through which and by which all things have been created and are continually being recreated. Excuse me a moment. You know, we may personalize this power and call it God, or we may think of it as the essence or spirit which permeates all things. But in either case, the effect is the same. So far as the individual is concerned, the objective, the physical, the visible, is the personal, that which can be cognitively cognized, if you would, by the senses. It consists of body, brain, and nerves. If you would, then, the subjective is the spiritual. The invisible, the impersonal. You know, the personal is conscious because it is a personal entity. The impersonal, being the same in kind and quality as all other being, is not conscious of itself. And it has therefore been termed the subconscious. The personal or conscious mind has the power of will and choice, and therefore it can exercise discrimination in the selection of methods whereby to bring about the solution for, of difficulties. The impersonal, on the other hand, or spiritual, being a part or one with the source and an origin of all power, can necessarily exercise no such choice, but on the contrary, it has infinite resources at its command. It can and does bring about results by methods concerning which the human and individual mind can have no possible conception. It's amazing. You'll see that it's your privilege to depend upon the human will with all its limitations and misconceptions. Or you may utilize the potentialities of infinity by making use of your subconscious mind. Here then is the scientific explanation of the wonderful power which has been put within your control, if you'll but understand, appreciate, and recognize it. One method of consciously utilizing this omnipotent power is what we're going to outline tonight in lesson 7. Visualization is the process of making mental images, and that image is a mold or model which will serve as a pattern from which your future will emerge. If you make the pattern clear and make it beautiful, do not be afraid. Make it grand. Remember that no limitation can be placed upon you by anyone but who? Yourself. You're not limited as to cost or material. You can draw on the infinite for your supply. You can construct it in your imagination, and for sure it will have to be there before it'll ever appear anywhere else. So make the image clear and clean cut. Hold it firmly in the mind, and you will gradually and constantly bring whatever that image is closer and nearer to you. So really what that's saying is you can be what you will to be. You know, this is another psychological fact which is well known. But unfortunately, we've read about it and we've heard it and stuff. It doesn't bring about any results which you may have in mind. It will not even help you to form the mental image, much less to make it happen. You know, work is necessary. Labor, by that I mean hard mental labor, the kind of effort which so few people are willing to put forth. The first step is idealization. It's likewise the most important step because it is the plan on which you're going to build everything else from, the foundation, if you would. Idealization. It must be solid. It must be permanent. You know, you take like an architect. When he would plan, let's say, a 30-story building, that architect has every line and detail pictured in advance. And like an engineer when he's building a bridge across a great chasm, he first ascertains the strength requirements of a million separate parts, if you will. They see the end before a single step is taken. Thus, the reason idealization is so foundationally must be sound and true. So you're to picture in your mind what you want. If you would, I believe it was Bruce last week who said, you're sowing the seed. And that's so very true. You're sowing the seed. But before sowing any seed, you want to know what the harvest is to be. Because you surely wouldn't want to plant beans expecting wheat to come up. And you surely wouldn't want to plant wheat expecting alfalfa to grow, if you would. This is idealization. If you're not sure, then go back in and meditate some more daily until a picture of what you desire and want becomes plain. It'll gradually unfold. And at first, the general plan will be kind of dim, but it will take shape, and the outline of it will take form, and then the details start to fill in. And you will gradually develop the power by which you will be enabled to formulate plans which will eventually materialize in the objective world without. You'll come to know what the future holds for you through your idealization and foundational setting, through visualizing the end result and knowing what the harvest will be first. Then and only then, when we focus, will we understand what the future holds for us. After that, then comes the process of visualization, idealization, visualization. You must see that picture more and more complete. See the detail of whatever it is. And as the detail begins to unfold, the ways and means for bringing it into about to happen will develop. One thing will always lead to another. Thought will lead to action. Action will develop methods. Methods will develop friends. And friends will bring about circumstances. And finally, the third step, or materialization, will have been accomplished. It's why I call my group Team Hope. Together, everybody achieves more, helping other people every day. So let me go back over that real quick. After idealization, after having a core sound foundation and seeing the general plan and knowing what the harvest, what the goal is, complete, the harvest is to be, comes visualization. At that point, that, if you would, is your laser focus. You begin to see the picture more and more complete. You see the detail. And as the details begin to unfold, the ways and means for bringing them about begin to develop. One thing always leads to another. So thought will lead to action. Well, we know when we take action, it always develops methods. Well, in those methods, being who we are, in touch with the infinite, surrounded by generations of heredity, in that methods we develop friends. And as we all know, friends will bring about circumstances. And that's when the third step takes hold, materialization. Materialization will have been accomplished. If we were to think on an infinite level for a moment with our finite minds, we would all recognize that the universe must have been thought into shape before it ever could have become a material fact. And if we're willing to follow along the lines, if you would, of the great architect of the universe, or God, the creator, we shall find our thoughts taking form, just as the universe took, if you would, a concrete form. It's the same mind operating through the individual. There's no difference in kind or quality. The only difference is one of degree. The architect visualizes his building and he sees it as he wishes it to be. So at that point, his thought becomes a plastic mold from which the building will eventually emerge. Whether it be a high one or a low one, a beautiful one with elegance, or a plain one, simple and understated. His vision takes form on paper, and eventually the necessary material is utilized. And there it is. The building stands complete. Like Bell and Edison, the inventor visualizes his idea in exactly that same manner. For instance, a person that comes readily to mind that I really admire was Nikola Tesla. With his giant intellect, he had to be one of the greatest inventors of all ages. And this man has brought forth the most amazing realities, and he always visualizes his inventions before attempting to work them out. You know, the one thing I read and studied about him is he did not rush to embody them in form and then spend his time in correcting defects. What he did was first build up the idea in his imagination. He held it there as a mental picture to be, if you would, reconstructed time and time again and improved by his thought. In his book, I'm trying to think of it, I've got the title right. I believe it was The Electrical Experimenter. He said something like, in this way, that he was enabled to rapidly develop and perfect a conception without touching anything. And then he went on to say, when he had gone so far as to embody in the invention every possible improvement he could think of and see no fault anywhere, then he put it into concrete, the product of his brain. Well, I guess you would have to, if you read anything about him, understand that invariably his devices worked just like he conceived they should. And in 20 years, there was never a single exception. So if you can conscientiously follow these directions, let me tell you what it'll do for you. You will develop faith. the kind of faith that is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. You'll develop confidence, the kind of confidence that leads to, if you would, endurance and courage. You'll develop the power of concentration, which will enable you to exclude all thoughts except the ones which are associated with your purpose. You know, the law is that thought will manifest in form. And only one who knows how to be the divine thinker of his own thoughts can ever take a master's place and speak with authority. Clearness and accuracy are obtained only by repeatedly having the image in your mind. Each repeated action renders the image more clear and more accurate than the one before. And in proportion to the clearness and accuracy of the image, will the outward and manifestation of it be. You must build it firmly and securely in your mental world, the world within, before it can take form in the world without. And you can build nothing of value, even in the mental world, unless you have the proper material. When you have the material, you can build anything you wish, but make sure of your material. There's an old saying that you cannot make broadcloth from shoddy. Two different levels of cloth. This material be brought out by millions of silent metal workers and fashioned into the form of the image which you have in mind. Think of it. You have over 5 million of these metal workers ready and in active use, brain cells they are called, by the way. Besides this, there's another reserve force of at least an equal number of 5 million more that are ready to be called into action at the slightest need. Your power to think, then, is almost unlimited. And this means that your power to create the kind of life and material which is necessary to build for yourself any kind of environment which you desire is also practically unlimited. You know, in addition to these millions of metal workers, you have billions of metal workers in the body, every one of which is endowed with sufficient intelligence to understand and act upon any message or suggestion that you give it. These cells are all busy creating and recreating the body, but in addition to that, they are endowed with physical, psychic activity, whereby they can attract to themselves the substance necessary for perfect development. You know, they do that by the same law and in the same manner that every form of life attracts to itself the necessary material for growth. The oak, the rose, the lily, they all require certain material for their most perfect expression, and they secure it by silent demand, the law of attraction. The most certain way for you to secure what you require for your most complete development. So make the mental image, make it clear, distinct, perfect. Hold it firmly. The ways and means will develop for it. Supply will follow the demand. You'll be led to do the right thing at the right time and in the right way. You know, earnest desire always brings about confident expectation. And this in turn must be reinforced always by firm demand. You know, those three cannot fail to bring about attainment because the earnest desire is the feeling. The confident expectation is the thought. And the firm demand is the will. And as we've seen, feeling gives vitality to thought, and the will holds it steadily until the law of growth brings it into manifestation or life, brings it about. Isn't it wonderful that man has such tremendous power within himself? Such transcendental faculties concerning which he had no conception. Isn't it strange that we've always been taught to look for strength and power without? We've been taught to look everywhere but within. And whenever this power manifested in our lives, we were told that it was something supernatural, a miracle. You know, there are many who have come to an understanding of this wonderful power and who make serious and conscientious efforts to realize health, power, and other conditions. And they still seem to fail. They just don't seem able to bring the law into operation. Well, you know, the difficulty in nearly every case is that they're dealing with the externals, the world without. They want money, power, health, and abundance. But they fail to realize that these are effects and can come only when the cause within is found. Those who will give no attention to the world without will seek only to ascertain the truth, will look only for wisdom, will find that this wisdom will unfold and disclose the source of all power, that it will manifest in thought and purpose, which will create the external conditions desired. The truth will find expression in noble purpose and courageous action. Create ideals only. Give no thought to external conditions. Make the world within beautiful and opulent, and the world without will express and manifest the condition which you have within. You're going to come into a realization of your power to create ideals, and these ideals will be projected into the world of effect, cause, effect. For instance, a man is in debt, so he will be continually thinking about the debt, concentrating on it. And as thoughts are causes, the result is that he not only fastens the debt closer to him, but actually creates more debt. He's putting the great law of attraction into operation with the usual and inevitable result that loss leads to greater loss. What then, we might ask ourselves, is a correct principle? What I would say is concentrate on the things you want, not on the things you do not want. Think of abundance. Idealize the methods and plans for putting the law of abundance into operation. Visualize in your mind the condition which the law of abundance creates, and that will cause it to occur. Cause, effect. If the law operates perfectly to bring about poverty, lack, and every form of limitation for those who are continually entertaining thoughts of lack and fear, well, then wouldn't it operate with the same certainty to bring about conditions of abundance and opulence for those who entertain thoughts of courage and power? It's a difficult problem for many. Many are too anxious. They manifest anxiety and fear and distress. We want to do something. We want to help. We're like a child who has just planted a seed and every 15 minutes goes and stirs up the earth to see if it's growing. Of course, under such circumstances, the seed will never germinate. And yet, this is exactly what many of us do in the mental world. We have to plant the seed and leave it undisturbed. This does not mean that we are to sit down and do nothing, by no means. We will do more and better work than we have ever done before. New channels will constantly be provided. New doors will open. All that is necessary is to have an open mind and be ready to act when the time comes. Thought force is the most powerful means of obtaining knowledge. And if concentrated on any subject, it'll solve the problem. Nothing is beyond the power of human comprehension. But in order to harness thought force and make it do what you want it to do, a lot of work is required. Remember that thought is the fire. Look at it this way. Remember that thought is the fire that creates the steam that turns the wheel of fortune upon which your experiences depend. I'll repeat that for you. Thought is the most powerful means of obtaining knowledge. And if it's concentrated on any subject, will solve. As you concentrate it on any subject, it'll solve the problem. Nothing is beyond the power of human comprehension. But in order to harness thought force and make it do your bidding, you've got to work at it. Remember that thought is the fire that creates the steam. It's the fuel that creates the steam that turns the wheel of fortune upon which all of your experiences depend, the cause of all your experiences. So ask yourself a few questions, and then I ask you reverently await the response. Do you not know and then feel the self with you? Do you assert this self, or do you follow the majority? Remember what I said earlier, that majorities are always led, they never lead. You know, it was the majority that fought tooth and nail against the steam engine when they were advancing the ability to make cloth. The majority fought tooth and nail against the loom, the power loom, and every other advance or improvement that was ever suggested. So in ending lesson 7, let me leave you with an exercise to combine with lesson 6. First, do the one in lesson 6 where you visualize your photo. And then, once you feel comfortable with that, I want you to visualize your best friend. I want you to see him as you last saw him. See the room you were in, the furniture, recall in your mind the conversation. Then I want you to see his face. See it in your mind distinctly. And then talk to him about a subject of mutual interest. I want you to see his expression change. Watch him smile. Can you do this? All right, you can. Then arouse his interest. Tell him a story of adventure. See his eyes light up with the spirit of fun or excitement. Can you do all of this? If so, your imagination is good and you're making excellent progress. I'm going to give you a few study questions. What is visualization? What is the result of this method of thought? What is idealization? And why are clearness and accuracy necessary? How are they obtained? How is the material, if you would, for the construction of your mental image secure? How are the necessary conditions for bringing about the materialization of your ideal in the objective world secured? How do you secure it? What three steps that we discussed tonight are necessary in order to bring this law into operation? 3 distinct steps. And why do many fail? And what is the alternative? I'll leave it there with you tonight. God bless each and every one of you for putting up with me. May the good Lord bring many blessings upon you and yours. May he hold you deep in the palm of his hand until next we meet. I'm Dr. David King. Thank you and good night.